Now, this morning's affirmation is on renunciation. Renunciation means turning one's back on non-essentials, that we may give our whole attention to the Lord. We might think of renunciation as an investment, which initially may seem like a loss, but in time becomes multiplied to many times its original worth. The least gift that we give to God will return to us in divine blessings 1,000-fold. Renunciation means nothing less than the gift to God of oneself. Renunciation is of the heart. It isn't what you wear or the outward rules you follow. When you renounce all for God, you hold that renunciation as a precious secret between you and Him. All your desires, all your ambitions, then, are for Him alone. And please affirm with me, I spurn the tempting magic of this world.
I spurn the tempting magic of this world.
With its rainbow bubbles.
With its rainbow bubbles.
Ever ready to burst.
Ever ready to burst.
See where I fly.
See where I fly.
High above the tall mountains.
High above the tall mountains.
I am free.
I am free.
I am free.
I am free.
I spurn the tempting magic of this world.
I spurn the tempting magic of this world.
With its rainbow bubbles.
With its rainbow bubbles.
Ever ready to burst.
Ever ready to burst.
See where I fly.
See where I fly.
High above the tall mountains.
High above the tall mountains.
I am free.
I am free.
I am free.
I am free.
Now in a whisper, I spurn the tempting magic of this world.
I spurn the tempting magic of this world.
With its rainbow bubbles.
With its rainbow bubbles.
Ever ready to burst.
Ever ready to burst.
See where I fly.
See where
high above the tall mountains.
high above the tall mountains.
I am free. I am free. Now silently, I spurn the tempting magic of this world. With its rainbow bubbles ever ready to burst. See where I fly, high above the tall mountains. I am free. I am free. And please pray silently with me. Lord, help me to see that in no outward experience will I ever find fulfillment. All that my heart has ever sought awaits me in thee. Om Shanti.
Well, good morning. Welcome to the Satsang and to all those that are tuning in online. This reading is from Whispers from Eternity by Paramahansa Ananda, entitled Make Me Silent, that I may eloquently converse with thee. Wandering through forests of incessant searching, I arrived at the mystery door which conceals thy presence. I knocked loudly on this door of silence with persistent blows of faith. At last, the door opened, and I beheld thee resting on thy altar of glorious visions. I stood with restless gaze, waiting for thee to speak. Thy creation-making voice was inaudible. At last, a deep stillness stole upon me and taught me in whispers the language of angels. With the lisping voice of my new-born freedom, I tried to speak. Suddenly, the lights in thy temple wrote brilliantly in letters of light. In my little chamber of quietness, I'm ever at rest. I never speak now, but with the voice of silence. Through my silence, O divine lover, converse thou eloquently with me. This is Rajarsi Janakananda's birthday. Rajarsi Janakananda, also called Saint Lin by Master, was a highly advanced and fully liberated soul that came really upon Master's request, because Master was, knowing the great work that he had to do, was in need of what he called a financial savior. And Rajarsi Janakananda was a classic rags to riches man. And very interestingly, in the past, he was one of the Pandavas, Nakula, the positive twin. And at that point in time, thousands of years ago, he was also the disciple of Master. And so after Master finished off with his barnstorming years, filling the largest halls in the land. This was, again, the early 30s. Then it was time to begin a new chapter, which was to, again, train the disciples and so forth, and also to grow this work internationally. The autobiography of a yogi had not yet been written. This was going to be another, 15 years or so in the mid-40s. And so he was praying that this soul, and of course he knew who it was, would come to be a partner in his work, as St. Lin certainly was. And so this was in Kansas City, in the Midwest, where Rajasi, as a businessman at this point, a very prosperous businessman, saw a huge billboard. In those days, Master had these huge billboards. And Rajasi was struck by what he thought was a very beautiful and striking woman on this billboard with Master's, long hair. And what was his surprise when he was told by a friend that there was going to be a lecture by Paramahansa Yogananda, and Rajasi was drawn, and there was Yogananda. He was not a woman, he was a man. And so that was the beginning. Master said the Divine Mother had a good sense of humor, and so that's how that all started. And then Master, of course, was very keen to meet Rajasi. And so Rajasi asked for an appointment at that time. And again, this was 1932. And so Master very joyously granted that appointment, and that relationship began. And Rajasi Janakananda was a fascinating man on many, many levels. And he was extremely busy. There was one gentleman who was a part of Rajasi's business sphere, and said in the 40 years in various boards and so forth that he attended with Rajasi, he never experienced rather one time when Rajasi made an error in business judgment. And another time someone asked him, why did Rajasi come to work so late? He would come at 11 in the morning. And Rajasi said, well, I have to, because I'm meditating all morning long. That was what for him was an absolute essential. And whenever he could, he came out to see Master. He would have loved to have come more often, but he was so busy that he couldn't get away as much as he wanted until the later years in the late 40s and 50s. And he would always go to Encinitas, which he built for Yogananda as a surprise when Yogananda was in India, this beautiful hermitage by the sea. And he would visit with Master there. And Master used to call him his nature boy, because he was always down on the beach. He loved to float in the water, because the expanse of the Pacific Ocean and the expanse of the sky, and of course this was an ecstatic saint, would take him, to the heights. And Master too, their relationship, if you have seen photos of them, whether it's shelling peas together or in meditation or whatever it might be, the sweetness is so much there present. And Master, being mischievous, from time to time liked to have fun with Rajasi. So he would tap him on the chest. And Rajasi knew what he was doing and was, hesitating, because he knew that was it. He had this great attunement, and he would go into samadhi. And so who wouldn't want that? But Rajasi was, again, very, very private, very much to himself and so forth. So no doubt he didn't want to make a spectacle of himself. And Rajasi and Master was having fun with him. There was, before I begin with this reading on the path about Rajasi, there's an image that I bring to mind very often, because I find it so playful and so inspiring. This was a time when Rajasi and Master were together, and they were at this function where there was this evangelist, and she was making a spectacle of herself by parading around the room, and there were thousands of people, and it was basically ridiculous. And so Rajasi and Master glanced at each other and just smiled. They were, of course, in bliss, and they were enjoying it. There wasn't any thought that, they should go up to this woman and say, really, this isn't needed. It would be better to meditate. You're taking everybody outside themselves. What is this? They knew, this was the Leela. Divine Mother was having fun. And so I often bring that to mind because, yes, we are, working toward growing to the heights, but at the same time, as is important to remember, Master said, we're here to be entertained and instructed. And so this was pure entertainment with Rajasi and Master. So this was a very special time for Swami. This was his first Christmas in 1948, and the first time that he met Rajasi Janakananda. This reading is from The Path, the chapter Gardens, Mundane and Spiritual. As Christmas approached, St. Lin visited Mount Washington. This was my first opportunity to meet Master's foremost disciple and spiritual heir. I found him gentle, soft-spoken, and remarkably humble. He seemed completely dispassionate, centered in the inner self. As Master introduced each of us to him, St. Lin smiled sweetly but said little. I discovered in time that he took almost no interest in small talk. A self-made man of considerable worldly means, he referred hardly ever to his outer life. For all we heard from him personally, he might have been a man of few achievements. Virtually, his sole topics of conversation with God were God, Guru, and meditation. Silently, he would come up to us whenever we met him on the grounds and bless us. He might then offer us a few words of spiritual advice or encouragement. His mind was always inwardly focused on God. To be with him seemed to me like looking out through a window onto infinity. After Master's passing, Rajasi Janakananda, as we knew him then, seemed almost to become Master. His eyes, by some subtle transformation, were Master's eyes. So perfect was his attunement that our Guru's very thoughts became his thoughts. Master used to say of himself, I killed Yogananda long ago. Rajasi Janakananda similarly had attained that state of consciousness where nothing of his ego remained. It was as if God and Guru, through him, spoke to us directly. Sometimes with what we go through on a daily basis, inwardly and outwardly, various challenges and so forth, it's good to keep in mind that Divine Mother is doing this for a reason. And the reason is to equip us for the liberating shock of omnipresence, to get our nerves ready for the awakening of the Kundalini, all of these things. Well, when we think of what Rajasi had to go through as his last test, it makes even more sense that we are needing this training and this development along the way, because this test was a supreme test. He was, at this point, this is toward the very end of his life. He passed in 1955, just a few years after Master's Mahasamadhi. And so toward the very, very end of his incredible incarnation, where he was always having, visions and, of course, in Samadhi and so forth, all of these blessings withdrew. And it was just darkness. He was used to, going through the spiritual eye in these high states of cosmic consciousness. Everything withdrew. And needless to say, this for him was a trial of trials. None could compare to that. And so this was not just half an hour to an hour. This was over a period of a few days. And he would meditate and it would just be darkness. And he persevered. He had this faith. He knew that, again, his love for Divine Mother was such that if this is what now was the experience for him. However, it was going to last, who knows? Maybe it would have lasted, for long period of time. He didn't know. So he just remained steadfast in trust in this childlike spirit. And then bit by bit, the light appeared. The gurus appeared. And this was his final test. He went into the light and he was fully liberated. And of course, when we talk about full liberation, that means no karma. Nirvikalpa Samadhi, when we attain that state, hopefully this lifetime, that means we're done with the physical plane. We don't have to come back to this plane. Well, there's more. The astral karma, the causal karma. And I often think that Divine Mother, she loves her Leela so much, because a saint that has achieved Nirvikalpa Samadhi can say, I am free, and all of the karma, astral and causal, is discharged immediately. But she has so much fun with her Leela that she says, well, why don't we just have some more fun and work out these, various incarnations that we've had that manifest in the astral and causal. Having the saint has to find that deep realization where he realizes that it's all God playing through him. So I think, Divine Mother, you would think you'd be satisfied after incarnations and incarnations that finally we've achieved enough grace that we're done with this plane. No, let's have some more fun. And so there it is. What are we going to do? But at that point, we're problem free, because if we're having to experience any challenge, you go into samadhi and you experience that perfect bliss. We need to have that problem that they have. And we're looking forward to it, that high state. And so the saints are, of course, as we well know, absolutely vital, because if we didn't have them, we would be in big trouble. And Master had his saints, some as extreme as James Collier, who, as Master described him, too hot to swallow, too sticky to spit out. He was so eccentric. He was always getting into trouble on a regular basis. And at one point, Divine Mother decided to have some fun with Master there in Encinitas. There was James Collier walking on the beach, and Master saw a light around him and knew that James Collier would become a saint. And so he said to the other disciples, when he described the experience he had had with James, he said, I saw this light, and Divine Mother said that he would be free. I don't know how, but Divine Mother says so, so it must be so. And so whether you have, a James Collier type, and it's so much fun to meditate on the various episodes of his life as described by Swami, to the other side where you have Rajasi, who, barely spoke except Guru, God and Guru, and meditation and so forth, and then everything in between. It's very, very, very endearing to think that Divine Mother, she has all of these manifestations of these great souls so that we can drink in the inspiration of, again, the many facets of the diamond. And that gives us really the added incentive to appreciate all of the different ways that God manifests, in this world with our relatives and friends and colleagues and so forth. And for us to go deeper as a master, of course, he didn't need this, but with that vision of James Collier, it was a wake-up call, perhaps, for him on a human level. And it gives us then that added blessing and challenge in some instances to go deeper than people's personalities, our own, and to drink of the real essence of what's really here. Recently, Roma shared with me a documentary of this fellow that had this after-death experience. And each one is so unique, and it's so beautiful and so inspiring to have these kinds of people, and they're not necessarily saints, but good enough to have left their bodies in so many different ways and to gone into the heavenly regions and experience those realities, come back, and then have the courage, because it takes that. Because people are thinking, well, off to the psychiatrist to this, for this one, they're sharing something that is, completely out of their realm of experience. But it gives us, as the autobiography of a yogi does and the saints do, another taste of what is beyond form and what is really in this world a dream, and gives us the added incentive to go beyond all of these things that we think we are, as Swamiji would share with us again and again in so many different ways. We're children of God. We're light. We don't have to be thinking in terms of any of these limitations. This fellow in this documentary said something very interesting. He said, something, as the years pass, probably a man in his 40s, a very spiritual man, raised really as a child with Vedanta and so forth. His parents were very spiritual. He said, really, if you look into the mirror, from time to time, I think he was saying, maybe a year passes, you look in the mirror, it's a different person. It's a different person. And if you're on the spiritual path, you almost don't recognize that person, because in time, as we've been told, as we grow spiritually, we won't even be able to recognize ourselves. And that's a very relishable thought, to get to that point where who is that person? And it's why I like to say that if I look into the mirror and it looks like it's going to be a happy day, it's because Divine Mother has remembered to put on my makeup. That's all. It's her makeup. It's her vibration shining through us. The eyes being the windows of the soul. And that's what we want. And that's why spending time together is so, bless you, so important, because we have spent so much time helping Divine Mother with her makeup that we don't know it half the time, if any of the time, that we are changing people's lives just by being ourselves. That's it, just by being ourselves. And people even as a little boy, I wasn't necessarily spiritual, but I do remember that I would go to different, whether it was a grocery store or a barber shop, and I would go there to be with that person, the clerk. I wanted to be with that person. And maybe we would, he was busy. I wasn't going to take a lot of his time, but just, how are you doing? Oh, good to see you, and this and that. And it was like, for me, though I was unaware of it, a pilgrimage, a real pilgrimage, to be in that vibration. And there was one here and one there, maybe the mailman. And so on one time, my crossing guard, Gracie, and I was maybe 6 years old, we had made friends, and she was another one of those angels. And she knocked on my parents' door, on my door where the family lived, and my mother opened the door, and this lady, Gracie, said, "Oh, are you Stevie?" Not Haridas. Are you Stevie's mother? Yes, I am. Oh, I'm his grandmother. And so my mom shook her hand. Nice to meet you. And so I really think that, without a doubt, that as we introspect and we think in terms of, and it's a good thing, various ways that Divine Mother has come to us, inwardly, outwardly, whatever it might be, that she was in so many ways coaxing us to wake up from this dream, and then our good karma manifested itself, and we became yogis and yoginis, and we began to appreciate how Divine Mother is constantly at work, helping us all the time. She doesn't sleep. So she has ample time 24/7, even when we're asleep, to continually work on brightening our consciousness, which is, of course, what it's all about. And so you have a saint celebrating his birthday. If you haven't spent time with the readings of Rajarsi Ananda, there's a beautiful book, we can show it to you, written by Durga Mata. It was a highly advanced saint, Master said of her, "I've reserved your seat in heaven along with Sister," who was Gainamata, Yogananda's most advanced woman disciple. Well, that speaks of her being a saint, doesn't it? And so she writes of Rajasi and of Master, and she had a very, very unique role because Master, after some time, asked her to basically be Saint Lin when he came to Encini as his chaperone, to help in any way, running errands and all those various things. And so there she was in between Master and Rajarsi Janakananda, and she was a saint too. And then Gainamata was there as well. My God, 4 saints there at Mount Washington and in Encinitas. And so Durga's book, she goes into real detail. Not only, again, she came to Master in the late 20s, not only describing Master, but Rajarsi Janakananda as well. And I'd highly recommend it because it really fills in the blanks and gives us, added inspiration as to the life of these saints and how divine and human they are. And this integration of their lives is so very inspiring and gives us that added incentive to be ourselves on a divine level, and of course, to enjoy the human Leela as we all manifest in so many different ways. So happy birthday, Rajarsi Janakananda, and again, spend time with him. These direct disciples, they are extraordinary examples of what it is to be in tune with the Guru. And when you have an example of Rajarsi Janakananda, Saint Lin, that's one to spend some time with. And just looking at his photographs, there's photographs in the path and conversations of Yogananda and others of Swami's writings and other books. And you look at his face and you wonder, my God, how could a person look like that? They obviously are in a heightened state of grace. And so just looking at them is a meditation. Okay, I think we are going to have our arti. Yes?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing.
Okay, good.
About Rajasi. Swamiji was close to Rajasi on a spiritual level, and he would come for a blessing up to Rajasi, and Rajasi at one time, over and over again actually, but the first time, he gave Swamiji a blessing at a satsang, and he looked into his eyes, Swamiji's eyes, and he said, "You have a great work to do. Master says you have a great work to do." And Swami just said, "I don't want to do a great work. I just want to meditate. I just want to find God. I want to be here in the ashram with you. I don't want to do great work." And he kind of froze up. And then Rajasi took his hands and he said, "And he will give you the power and the grace and the blessing to do it." And Swamiji was just flooded with love, flooded with joy. And he realized in that moment that this work that nobody would exactly tell him what it was that he was to do was a mission from Divine Mother that he was going to fulfill with the blessings of Master, Babaji, Lahiri, Sri Yukteswar, Rajasi, and all the saints and Divine Mother. And so he said, because of Rajasi, he gave him courage. He gave him the courage to just let go of what he thought it was to be spiritual, what he thought it was, let go of his limitations, let go of his little box that he had put himself in, his imagination of what it was to be spiritual, and just let go, and he let God then direct his life. So that when all these things came up in the ashram, and all of a sudden he wasn't in the ashram where he wanted to be, all of a sudden, and he thought God had abandoned him, but he remembered, I have a great work to do. I don't know how, I don't know where, I don't know who, I don't even know myself. Little by little, gradually, just like that light that Rajasi saw in his darkness. He said he saw a light, tiny, tiny speck of light coming at him, coming slowly, 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 and came into his spiritual eye, and then there was Master and all the gurus. That's how he came out of that darkness. And that's sort of how Swamiji had his life. He was in the darkness, but he was in the world. He didn't know. He knew nobody. And little by little, step by step, day by day, month by month, year by year, he just said, yes, I'll do this much. We'll see where this goes. I'll do this much. We'll see where this goes. And he always kept his sadhana strong. Kriyananda, his Kriya was very strong, and his attunement to his guru and this line of masters that he had accepted into his life to guide him was very real for him. And when the world was falling apart outside, these gurus were more real to him than the world outside. And so he could listen, and he trusted, and he moved forward. And what an example for each one of us. The saints are in our lives to guide us, to show us by their lives how to really have the courage to be on the spiritual path. This world, I truly believe this, and I've believed it ever since I came onto this path, and even as a little girl, that I was here for a reason. I didn't know what the reason, but this world, since I've been a little girl, has gotten darker, 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 darker. But the light has gotten lighter, 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 and lighter. And Master put me facing the light, in the light. And I felt and I feel today that people that are meditators, that are spiritual looking for God, that love God, that are in joy, that we have a responsibility to share this light. And I kind of realized that when I was a little girl, but I didn't know how. But when I got onto this path, then all of a sudden it became very, very apparent. This is how you can share the light. You can speak about God. You can meditate. You can be kind. You can be compassionate. You can be giving. You can be loving. You can be generous. You can think of others before yourself. You can be a renunciate. You can let this world go, and you can give your life to God. And it doesn't happen all at once, but it happens in just increments, little steps of trusting, little steps of saying yes. And then you feel this growing sense of well-being in your heart that your life and your incarnation is meaning something. It means something that we are on the spiritual path. It means something when we decide that we can share this light. It transforms. Maybe you don't think it's transforming you, but it is. But just like Haridas was saying, going to the barbershop and talking to that man's day was probably made with this cute little boy. Haridas was really cute when he was a little boy. He's still cute, but really cute. But just imagine this little 5-year-old going in there and just walking in and sitting there and talking to the barber. I mean, it's just the sweetest thing. Well, we're all simple like that and childlike, and it's not hard. We don't have to be. Masters used to call, these people that go to the university and they get all of their master's degree and this degree and that degree. And he said, it's a DD. He says, Doctor of Delusion is what that is. You have your DD. He said, it's nothing. But when you have a spiritual transformation within your own heart and you love God and you give everything to God, that is the degree that you want. That is the thing that will guide you. So don't think you're puny. None of us are puny and little. All of us are the same. And when we have that experience like this man had, he had this experience of oneness, of being one with everything. That's who we are. And he said, it's just like so natural. It's so natural. Master talks about it. He said, I'm me. And here I was in my body, confined with my ego and who I thought I was and who I saw in the mirror. And then I was one with everything. And it was like no time existed. And he said, that's for each one of us. And he's having the courage to say this on a podcast on YouTube, and that's pretty rare. That's pretty rare these days. But I think that each one of us that has taken on meditation, taken on Kriya Yoga, taken on service to God and Guru, each one of us, we need to find within ourselves, what's our next step? How can we serve God more joyfully, more beautifully? How can our life become more meaningful? And once you feel that, you never want to go back to the other way of just thinking of yourself, your own desires and your own achievements and your own security and your own, this world, you're gone. At the end, you're gone. And what have you got? You've got your heart, and you've got your soul, and you've got all of the capacity right now where we are to love. Master said, love courageously. This is what the world needs now. This is why we're here. Any way we can do it, anyway, just doesn't matter. And we're each unique and we're each beautiful and we each have a different song to sing, but we're all one in that love. We're all one in that love. Don't criticize. I want to close with one people have heard this before, but Swamiji was in Assisi, Italy, and he was in the Portuncula, which is where St. Francis lived, and with his monks, and that's where it's a beautiful, beautiful holy chapel. And the cross came alive and talked to him. And so Swami was meditating there, and he just was filled with so much sweetness, just a sweetness like he had never experienced before. Just this love, this acceptance, this love, this compassion just came over him. And he said, how do I get this? How do I maintain this? Where did this come from? How can I have this all the time? And there was a voice inside of his heart, and it said, by never judging, by never judging. Think of that. How often do we spend our days judging ourselves, judging our life, judging our relative, judging everything, judging anything, by never judging. So when you catch yourself going off in that direction, being critical, or why aren't they doing this, or why, and I'm not good enough, and all of those things, catch yourself and just bring it up to the spiritual eye, offer that energy up to God, and feel his oneness and his kindness, because he loves you exactly as you are. And we should love everybody exactly as they are. God does. Why can't we? We want to be loved. Why can't we love? We're just so hard on ourselves. So in honor of Rajasi, open your heart. Just be real. Be yourself. You don't have to be anything special. You are special in God's eyes, but, make the effort. Make the effort to bring light into this world, because that's why we're here. I'm convinced of it. So God bless you all, and happy Rajasi's birthday. And now we'll have our arati.